Hey guys, welcome. Hat Tuesday number 25. Hat Tuesday number 25. Hopefully you guys are doing well. I already got a guest here. We got Robert in the audience. Let me bring him in. Robert, how is it going, my friend?
Very well, thank you. Good morning.
Good
At least on the
morning.
West Coast.
Yeah. Understood. That's a great hat you're wearing, actually. Tell us a little bit about that hat.
This was I brought in some felts from China.
Mm,
I don't know, within the last year, maybe 8 months ago,
yeah.
just out of curiosity to see what, and they're quite. I was impressed. Nice felts. I brought in some
Yeah.
rabbit, and some beaver, and they're nice felts. Um, Good pricing, but um, they're a factory. They're not looking to deal with individual hat makers. They want to ship bulk orders, right? And so
Right.
their minimum order quantity is quite high, and really too high for, if I was 20 years younger, I would consider bringing them in and opening up a distributorship. But it's like, nah, at this point in my life, I'm not interested in the in the work.
Understood.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's
and I
lovely,
don't think
lovely hat.
the other thing too is I don't think there's the prices are good, but like not wow, not great, and there's not enough room to bring the, like if I did want to be a distributor, there's not enough room for me to bring them in and build in I don't know 35% that I would need to mark them up and be competitive with, say, Millinery Warehouse.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that because I thought, well, maybe a distributor will pop up and start selling them, like Millinery Warehouse, et cetera. But no one
Yeah.
has, and it's like I kind of understand it because the price is just not there.
Right. Right. Paul, welcome.
Yeah. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Robert. Nice to see you.
Hello.
Hi. The just on the distributor thing there is quite interesting. I was talking to FEPSA a while back about distribution in the UK, and oh, excuse me. They they used to work with what was it called? Abraham's. I've forgotten their name now. Baxter, Hart, and Abraham, and but I think Baxter, Hart, Abraham said to me, Nick, who owns it, said that he couldn't get consistent supply or price. And availability of the colours, which surprised me rather, because the FEPSA are supposed to be the biggest or one of the biggest in the world, and quite capable. So I don't know whether that's a general thing, but I've certainly found in buying felts off of their website, you just sort of have to take what they've got basically, and if they haven't got what you want, email them and see if they've got something.
How long ago was that, Paul?
That was about 12. Probably no more than 12 months, maybe 10 months ago. But I was speaking to him about it because I was looking at whether or not I should put a little bit of money behind bringing in some FEPSA felts and doing some distribution. Because one or two of the smaller hatters that I've tried to, they've reached out to me and said, look, like your videos, can you help me? And I said, sure, I can. And they've said, well, where do you buy your various bits and pieces? So I put them onto the various UK suppliers that I use, and then we talked about felts, and of course FEPSA came up, and you can buy the other felts in the UK seem to come from Tonac and people over in Czechoslovakia or wherever it is now, and other places. And I tried one or two of them, but I didn't really get on with the quality of it. And I don't know whether that's quite possibly just me, but certainly the FEPSA felts, I've just really loved working with them, and they've been quite generous with their time and their help. And I mean, look, I'm nobody to them, and for them to help by sending small numbers, I've been very grateful.
Yeah, because for a while, I lose track of time, but it's only been I don't know, maybe the last 2 years that FEPSA opened up that big expansion. So prior to that, I think essentially they doubled the size of their operation.
Wow.
And it's like I said, probably within a couple of years.
Yeah.
So I can see that being the case previously, but like I don't think
Yeah,
Tim,
yeah.
I don't think Tim at Pure Beaver, I don't think he's had any supply issues.
Right.
No, I haven't, Robert. I mean, I put an order in last week for 60 felts, and they're arriving tomorrow. You know, and to
Ooh,
me,
wow.
that's as good as you can get, isn't it? Really. So
Yeah,
I've got 30 Western felts and 30 dress felts coming in of various weights and colors and things.
there's a hatter here in Vancouver that he makes the festival hats, and he works primarily in Western weight, and he's been bugging FEPSA probably since he started about the same time as I did, and he's been bugging FEPSA right from the beginning, and they finally have agreed to sell direct to him.
Right.
How odd! I mean, there was no question of. I just reached out to them on an email, and then I phoned them and spoke to them, and I introduced them to my website, and I told them about my YouTube channel, and they were. It never. There was no problem. Just order what you want online, and we'll deliver it. You just pay, and the delivery from FEPSA in Portugal to here in the UK is £25.
Wow.
So it's really, really cheap. I mean, I've got these 60 felts will come in one box, believe it or not, one box. Even though they're Western weight, there's 30 of them are Western weight. I mean, they're Western weights of 210 grams and upwards is what I've been doing the festival hats in. But I think I've got 3 of the 80% beaver, which is like the black I've got there coming over. I mean, they're just, well, I'm very pleased with them, but you know, I don't have as wide an experience as yourself, Robert. But I'm happy with how the felts turn out for me. You know,
Yeah,
and so my client.
But do you order off their online store?
Yeah.
So there's a different level of because the pricing on their online store is not that much different than Tim's prices.
Oh, really? So he must have.
And so if you are allowed to buy direct from them, then you are buying at the same pricing, I imagine, that Tim buys them at. So your pricing is going to be so much better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm buying at the price on.
And that's why. But the downside is that they're at the distributor level, their minimum order quantity is quite high. And it's like a minimum of 12 pieces per color.
Right.
And it might even be 12 pieces per color per size. So it's like if you want any manner of color selection, like you got to be bringing in a few hundred felts. So it is
expensive then, isn't it? Yeah,
it is prohibitive for the and the downside with the fellow hatter here is that he works in Western weight and I work in dress weight, so we can't combine.
No.
So it's I've held off.
Yeah, I mean, I just I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to invest £10,000 or £15,000, which frankly I didn't have, and I would have to borrow the bulk of that. And I just looked at the marketplace and felt that there's only really about 20 small hatters like myself here in the UK, the likes of Herbert Johnson and Lock and Co. They don't direct anyway to FEPSA, so you know I'd be probably finding it quite difficult to sell my minimum order quantity open order if I put £10,000 or £15,000 into it. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah.
But it also talking to Drew of Millinery Warehouse, he was saying that like when his business model, he wanted to open up to sell to individual hatters, and that his business model is that he could make the business case for it. But he says when I sell a single felt or 2 felts to a hatter, he says I lose money on it.
Yes, the time it takes to pack them up and all the packaging and everything else, Robert. I've done it to 1 or 2, but I've done it more as a favor. But you know, I've sat back and thought even about the hats that I sell. that you know, it it's difficult to make money. You know, we've said this before, Robert, haven't we? It's difficult to make money as a full-time job out of hatting. For me to top up my pension and to do it as a business stroke hobby, it's great. You know, I can probably do 30,000-40,000 pounds a year, $60,000-$70,000, but that's it. You know, it's I can't really put the time in to get any more than that, and that's not really a business. Not really. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I think hatting is no different than any other craft endeavor.
Yeah,
is that there's no efficiencies of scale to be built in, and that at the end of the day, regardless, as a craftsman, regardless of your craft, you're selling your hours.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all you have to sell and there's a finite number of hours in the day. And unless you are dealing with a Nick Fouquet market, it's a tough way. Or you have to invest in $100,000 in worth of equipment, which does give you some efficiencies. You got to have the demand. You know, it's a circular argument, because then you have to have the demand or the potential of that demand to justify sinking another 100K into the business.
Yeah, not in my time of life.
No. And never mind the fact that your time is infinitely more valuable, right? The more more you get on. I mean, at least that's the way I view it.
What I found though, Luke, is that I found myself making hats even at the weekends when it's been raining, you know. And my wife and I have said, look, it's too wet to go out. So I found myself in the hobby room here, and I'm actually you know, working on hats and what have you. But I think Nathan's just brought up about the baseball cap. And,
I wanted to bring that up too.
If people like it, then I mean, I've obviously got my logo on the front there, and then on the back I've just got bespoke British hatters. Now I've not put my my website on there yet, which I don't know whether to or not, because it makes it much more of a promotional item then. But I may well just end up you know, giving these away with hats that people buy, you know.
I like it.
It's just I was down in the embroiderers and I said, look, can you pop this on a baseball cap and let's just see how it looks. And you know, I was quite happy with it. I just thought, I'm playing golf, you know, it's coming up to the season. I thought it'd be a great idea. People say, oh, that's a nice logo, what's that all about, you know? And it might get some talk going. So that was all it was. I mean, but yeah, anybody that's you know, that's buying from me, I'll probably end up, if I usually give a brush or something, you know, to some of the clients if they bought a couple of things. Thanks very much about the comment on the logo, by the way, Jedi.
Yeah, it is. It's a very nice logo.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was the idea behind it was that, you know, a bird flies and they make their decisions on, you know, how they want to preen and look really quite something. And I thought, well, you know, so do us men. You know, we want to wear the hats and make a statement. Then, you know, the colours and things. It's just nice, you know.
You know, we had a great comment here by Ian. Says, compare the handcrafted shoe business. The Chinese are now becoming a problem for English makers because they produce top quality shoes at 40% cheaper. Yeah, it's tough to compete in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
You know, and it's one of those things where that's why we always talk about supporting, you know, your hatters, because, well, some of them, they're not going to become Lock & Co. Right? We've talked about that ad nauseum. As much as we want, you know, and we feel like, you know, Paul and Robert, like you're not going to compete with a Stetson or a Lock & Co., at least not at that game, meaning at that level. Maybe in a different way you can do so, you know, pricing versus quality and that and that kind of standpoint. But at which point it's one of those things where if you're able to support all these folks, you know, if you have that kind of you know, fortune, you know, you can try to just spread that wealth, because if you don't support them, then they go away, right? It's just the natural order of things.
It's nice to pick up the sort of the crumbs from the table, as it were. You know, those people that find myself, and no doubt yourself, Robert, that haven't gone into having, you know, custom shoes made, or in this case, custom hats made. You know, once you start, in fact, it happened to me this morning. I had somebody went to my website, bought a hat. I thought, oh, great, I'll pick the phone up and talk to the gentleman. And I did. Turns out that he's quite a wealthy gentleman, lots of hats in his collection. And he never thought about having a rabbit fur felt hat. They're all wool, and mine that he's just bought from me is a rabbit one. And I said, look, you've got to think about you know, longevity and design and all the rest of it. And he's just going away on holiday. He's going to come back and have a longer chat with me about hats and custom making hats. So, you know, we have to invest time because we don't have a shop front. So, you know, every potential client that reaches out is well worth us reaching out to and getting a rapport going, because, you know, people do buy people, and it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. And I think very much in the hat business, what I've certainly found is that, you know, if I get on with somebody quite well as a person, then, you know, it does open up the conversation to more styles of hats and more purchases, which is lovely.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, this kind of gets us to the point of our discussion here, which is, you know, again, we've talked about this in tidbits, right? Paul's has shared in terms of like his ideal collection number. I think Paul settled at like 10 to 12, I believe it was that number, Paul. But Nathan had put forward a kind of a very interesting, what if you only had 3? And you guys kind of know how I always work. I try to go and use and leverage AI. So I punched it into ChatGPT to just give me some examples of how one could structure a 3-hat collection here. And, you know, we don't need to kind of be tethered to this, but this can at least provide some of the basis for a discussion. And I'll share a comment by James here. James is more kind of a vintage kind of guy. He said a top hat, a high crown bowler, 1880s Hamburg. Those are my top dream hats. So that's an excellent combination right there for a 3-hat collection. So I don't know which one of you gentlemen want to open it up, but go ahead.
Well, looking at those 3, I think I've yet to find the people that wear those hats outside of formal occasions. Like in the UK, it might be horse racing or a wedding for a top hat. The bowler hat will inevitably be in the city, and there are still people wearing bowler hats in the city. And the Homburg, I love the Homburg. I mean, you're talking to a convert on the Homburg, but it's still considered quite a formal hat over here, and quite unusual. You know, I think I can't remember whether I was with yourself and Ian when we saw the gentleman in German Street wearing a Homburg, or whether it was just Ian and myself, but certainly we have seen people out and about with Homburg. So lovely idea, lovely collection. I'm not sure how practical it is from day to day.
Right. Yeah, James is definitely a different type of wearer. He's kind of the full get up. He kind of has that kind of I guess would it be Edwardian? Did I get that right? Yeah. So he has that style, and then like I said, we'll get James on the show. You know, that way we can all meet James Bond. So shout out to James. Thanks for sharing. But yeah, intriguing collection there. I agree on the top hat. Now again, I don't know. Like I've been searching for a top hat. You know, I haven't found one ever that came into my price range. I was like, you know what, I'm going to pull the trigger. And again, if I purchased it, I don't know how often I would wear it out in the wild. Like I purchased my first boater, and I haven't worn that out in public. I've worn it on screen here, but I haven't worn that in public. So it's one of those things where it definitely, like, I can definitely see that combination, kind of a top hat. You know, we got the Tuckster in there. Hi, Nathan.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. You know, I can see that combination of top hat, a Hamburg, and a bowler. I think that's an excellent combination. You know, and one of the other things you can throw in there is just, you know, obviously not everybody is really into the pork pie, but I always throw that into that mix as well. I always use that kind of that 4-hat framework for a while: top hat, Hamburg, you know, your bowler, your fedora, and then your pork pie. And in that order, in terms of formality, from top to bottom. And then maybe somewhere there you have a Panama hat. And I'm sure the voter fits in there somewhere as well, kind of on the probably on the lower end. Or anyway, I won't put that ad nauseum, but those are just frameworks that you can use in terms of form factor, right? But there's a whole other variety of ways you can kind of slice this pie. But Robert, did you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, my first response to reducing it to 3 hats, it's like, can't be done.
I know I wouldn't want to do it.
Agree.
It's asking the impossible on a great many fronts. But
Yeah.
I mean, if someone put a gun to my head, it would have to be a classic fedora, what I call a crossover hat. You know, kind of I don't know, open roadish style. I call it I sell quite a few of them. It's a country gentleman. It's a little bit urban, a little bit Western. And then the third would be a Panama.
Yeah.
Probably a decent, like a 3-inch brim minimum to actually get some sun protection.
Yeah.
But I'd be hard pressed to but then you get into color, right? Because then you need to double that, because you need different colors to go with different outfits. But for me, who at this point in my life, I never dress up.
Right.
It's probably been a decade since I wore a suit and a tie.
Yeah.
And it's like I have a number of unstructured jackets that I got my tailor to make up for. I got them in cotton, linen, and tweed, and so that's kind of my dress up. I'll put on an Oxford cloth shirt and then throw one of these unstructured jackets, depending on the time of year, and then choose a hat in the colorway that complements it.
Right.
And that's my dress up outfit. So a top hat, a bowler, none of those would I ever wear out in public.
Yeah.
It would be, I would, if it was extended to 5 hats, there would definitely be a Homburg in there.
Yeah.
Because I wear my Homburgs with anything, from jeans and a hoodie on up to what I call a dress occasion. I don't do any differentiation in there. But if I had to, those 3 would be the choice.
Yeah, that makes
Well,
sense.
I've just put 3 out here. Sorry, Robert.
Oh, no, go ahead, Paul. I think that was me that was interjecting.
Oh, I was just going to say that I've just put 3 out here today. I sat back and thought about what I've been wearing over the last few months, and I've got a trilby here, which is a beaver felt. I've got a rabbit felt fedora here, and then an open road beaver felt again. But the open road really, because it's quite a nice, robust hat to be able to wear in the bad weather, as well as with jeans and t-shirt, and also you can put the front down to wear it formally. And these other hats, well, with the brims up or the brims down, can decide whether it's formal or informal. But I thought about it. I wear them both with a jacket and trousers and an overcoat. But then again, just with a jumper and a scarf, I can put it on with the brim up. So for me, it's a trilby, a fedora, and an open road.
Nathan, you want to weigh in?
Yeah. So interesting topic. It was funny because I've been thinking about this, for about a week or so, like what would be the top 3. And when I was leaving out this morning, and I was very undecisive, by the way, but I was leaving out this morning and I was running behind, and I literally got 1 foot out the door, and I thought, okay, if I'm on the road today or wherever I'm at, let me grab some hats if I can jump on the stream. So I run into the room, and literally I had 30 seconds to kind of like, okay, I need to make a decision on this 3 thing. So I grabbed a 3, and I think what weighed in my mind was, okay, because Robert mentioned colorways, and I think that was important to me to get different colors. and then variety. I think versatility for me would play a key role. So, I think the first thing Robert mentioned was the crossover. So I did grab a Stetson Stratoliner, Cordova Brown, just a very comfortable hat for me. Very versatile. Put the front down or up for kind of casual. I've worn this with suits. I've worn it with a t-shirt, but just a nice crossover, like it says. I think it's a 2.5-inch brim teardrop. And then my what I call what somebody called it a buddy hat the other day, right? Is this like the daily sipper, or just something you kind of like your beater hat? That is my KTG Roadstar. It's kind of an open road style, 2 3/4 brim, rabbit. It comes open crown, so I just shaped the best cattleman that I could. It doesn't look all that great, but it's my cattleman, and I'll wear it the way I want it. But no, this is kind of a beater. Yeah, okay, it's a buddy hat. Okay, so yeah, this is probably a buddy hat. Just kind of grab it. I went on a road trip this last minute funeral to go to, and I was going to be driving for 8 hours, so I just grabbed that one on the fly, so it worked out. And then I could not leave out my Ceratelli 10X, I think, black felt cowboy. I can wear this with a suit, a t-shirt, a button-up, a polo. No matter where I'm at, this looks good. My wife loves this hat, so that works for me wherever I'm at. I can wear it. And I thought what was really funny is when I did that this morning, I was grabbing these hats on the way out the door, and I said, okay, I got my 3. But the whole time I was doing it, I was wearing my PJM Open Road.
Good call.
I was just like, I'm grabbing these hats. Like, this is my top 3, and it's not even one that I'm wearing. So I love this. This is just my hat. This is what most people see me in, and absolutely love it. This was my first experience with Paul, and I think this has turned into 4 or 5 hats after this one. One of my favorites by far. But yeah, I think with the top 3 hats, or if you have to narrow it down to 3, I think you're looking at colors, versatility. You want hats that are gonna you can wear in different scenarios, and if you were going to be stuck somewhere for a little while, or you were just kind of going into the unknown and you got to go down to 3, I think you need some versatile hats with colors and things that you can use in different scenarios. So yeah, it's a great topic.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for sharing that, Nathan. Yeah, I got to tell you, I mean, for me, the buddy hat, I usually call this my knock around hat. This is my Knox, Tom, and Jerry. But for me, I think that's like, I tackled this question since since I started thinking about today's topic. I've come up with like at least 3 separate frameworks. And I guess the one that I've kind of always settled on now is, a stingy brim fedora, a Hamburg, right? And a flat cap of some sort. So my flat cap, I think probably of choice has been this Huckel. And I just thought, because of the travel that I've been doing, I just got back from Puerto Rico. I took a flat cap with me. Just how easy it is to travel with the flat cap, right? So, I've mentioned this before, that hats have become kind of like an emotional support object, right? It's kind of like the guy's version of the teddy bear, right? Or the blankie. If you're used to wearing a hat when you go out in the wild, you kind of, it becomes kind of that support object. And I always find myself feeling a little calmer, a little bit more confident with a hat on my head. And, but I'm in complete agreement with Robert that 3, I mean, I would not want to live a life that I just got 3, because I do love the Panama, right? So, I mean, I just got my first Panama, maybe a proper Panama, in Puerto Rico. And I do love the Derby / bowler. You know, and I have worn the Hamburg and the bowler out in the wild. And it's one of those things where I was like, I would not want to have life without having those options. So maybe for me, I'm just in complete agreement that 3 is probably, you know, a good start, right? So this is probably a good framework for somebody really starting off their collection. And honestly, the first iteration was they're all going to be stingy brim fedoras, because I have 3 stingy brims that I happen to love. Right. Besides this one, I have a gray one and a black one that you guys have seen with some brim trim. And I'd be happy, I'd be content. But again, to put it just to 3, I just don't know if I could do it, at least not at this stage.
You know, Abel, I was looking at online comments to this question. Abel on the group said he would grab a Borsalino tan, a Beaver brand gray, a Dobbs blue. That was his 3.
Yeah.
But then he says, okay, but my wife grabs my 2 Stetsons and my Macy's brown. My daughter grabs the Monteque blue, the leather Barman, and the Biltmore yellow. So he was putting 3 in everybody's hands.
Yeah. And I think color right there. And I think we've had that discussion here. You know, I think Jedi here said natural/tan, light, medium gray, and black. Those are definitely a good color combination. So, you know, for us, we've talked about the idea of the conservative colors, right, Paul? We've had that discussion with Paul with your blacks, your browns, and maybe your grays. You know, and you can throw in maybe a blue felt, because this is actually a blue felt as well. But that's definitely a feasible color combination, right? So let's say you only want stingy brims. You can have those 3 colors, or you only like Hamburgs. You could have those 3 colors and be fairly covered, at least in terms of outfits, maybe. If all you want is to wear a Hamburg, I think that's pretty badass if somebody just wears Hamburgs. I love it.
The downside.
So Robert, is this a newsboy for Robert?
The downside with because I direct my customers, that's the beginning part of the conversation I have with them is well, 2 things: is how, where, and when will you be wearing the hat?
Correct.
And does your wardrobe is there a consistent color palette to it? So
yeah,
what are you trying to match the hat up to?
Yeah.
And so if it's a fellow that's like it's his first hat or it's one hat, I will try to steer him towards a as best you can a neutral color.
Correct.
I sell a lot of granite, a lot of natural, because they're the 2 most. And then I guess a silver belly if they want to go light. But the downside is they're kind of boring colors. I love granite. I love natural. I've got a whack of them, but it is kind of a boring color. And then if you go to the trimming and introduce a little bit of color into the trimming, then you're reducing the range, because the trimming then restricts you. Yeah. So it's, you know, it's like there's no easy way, and that's I guess why I have so many hats, because lately I've been leaning towards interesting colors.
Yeah, I love that.
And like this hat I don't wear a lot because there's not a lot that I can pair it with, or I have this one here which doesn't really show up, but it's a beautiful kind of burgundy wine purple color.
I love that.
You know, and it's, there's not a lot you can pair that up with.
Right.
So
I think Robert's right. I think when if you're just getting it down to like a few basic hats, you're probably gonna pick those, what he said, boring color, just because it kind of goes with most of your clothing. You know, like if you're probably not going to grab the bright yellow bumblebee yellow hat, you know, because it's just not going to pair well with most of what people wear. So I think those neutral colors, I think that would, if you're going to start a hat collection, definitely start there for sure.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Some excellent comments. A start exactly with mainly a bunch of straw currently. I'm at the building the starting 3 stage. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, Jedi. Jedi also says, need a complementary color trim, so it does add some personality without limiting color ranges choices. Yeah, color's an excellent, starting point. Obviously, weather, right? Having something that, like a straw that you can wear in warm weather. Having let's say, I'm just going to point out Akubra, because for a lot of folks, Akubra is the ultimate rugged hat brand. So having an Akubra that you can go out there, in the rain and not worry, one bit about the rain kind of getting to your felt. So those are all great ways and useful frameworks to kind of guide your collection. And the nice thing is, you do the starting three, just like Jedi mentioned. You do the starting three, right? It's kind of like a watch collection. Maybe you do a land, air, and sea watch, but then you start adding to that, right? And then your framework starts getting bigger. Obviously, your significant other allowing, right? You don't want to get in trouble, but you go and you start building up to a point where you start saying, okay, maybe it's a 5 hat or 6 hat. And then once you get to beyond the 10 or 12, you're probably not, you're probably getting more into like, well, I just want to have it, right? I think I'm in agreement with Paul that once you kind of get past that 10 to 12 mark, maybe it's more like I just want to have it than I need to have this or for coverage, right? Which is okay.
Yeah, I think, that too. And you'll step out of your box a little bit. Once you get to that volume of hats, you're kind of like, okay, well, let me get one, even though it may not be one you're going to wear all the time or for every occasion. You get more. Right, you get more, hats that you'll wear on certain occasions for sure.
Yeah. And Robert made a great point in terms of like the base colors, right? Let's say the idea is that you're only going to wear this with formal attire, right? We talked about this before. If they say you can have one suit, they usually recommend a navy blue suit. So why not a navy blue fedora to go along with that, pairs well with that suit? And maybe if you have a 2-suit collection, maybe you get a navy blue and a charcoal. And maybe you can get a 2-hat collection that starts that way. So there's multiple ways to skin this hat. But you guys have seen some of these 4 areas here. We talked about a little bit about function. We talked about climate. We talked I guess maybe a little bit about identity. But one thing that we maybe briefly touched upon is if you want to include some sort of a festival hat, right? The out there colors, right? I think somebody just mentioned in terms of like going on to some of the brighter colors, because for me, I don't think my hat collection would be complete if I didn't have something that would probably fit into the festival hat, category. And those are they come in really useful sometimes to go to a party, or just when you're feeling like, when your personality is like, you know what, I'm feeling a little fun and adventurous. And it's nice to be able to grab a hat that you're like, you know what, I'm going out there with this one. And it brings people a smile because, again, it's one thing to wear conservative colors. We talked about this, and people already think you're brave, right? I've had that comment just recently. I was out with a friend at a local pub, and one of the younger guys that kind of hang out at the bar, he was like, man, I love to wear a hat, and I'm like, so why don't you? He's like, well, I don't think any of them look good on me. I said, well, just realize that probably your biggest issue is probably in your own perception, right? Because you just look in your mirror and that's it. You take off the hat. You're like, nope, no way I can go outside with that. But if you can get beyond that a little bit, you will find out that it becomes very normal, maybe to the point where you'd feel naked without your hat on. So I told him, I said, you know what? Given my journey and my stage, I think for you, and I looked at his style, he kind of had a very preppy style. I said, why not go for a flat cap, And if you know what, if you don't want to buy one, you can come in and come to my house, and then you can go grab one and you can borrow it, and if you loved it that much, I'd probably just let him keep it because I have a lot. But those are the ways that you can go and start normalizing. You'll be surprised the amount of feedback that you get. The same feedback that I got, which is, you're so courageous for going out in a hat, and I'm like, you could do it too. There's nothing special about doing it. But there are a lot of ways to kind of get into it. But once you get into it, then it starts to snowball. What else here? What else?
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned. I mean, briefly maybe, but the climate. You know, because I don't know that. Like I was debating the straw, and I could have very easily like taken one out and put one of my straws in.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it gets like, you know, crazy hot, but there's definitely like a need for it. So I think climate too, depending on where you're at, that may influence whether you're putting a straw in there as like one of your essentials, or maybe a flat cap or something a little bit cooler. And then, you know, then you got the material, right? So like if I'm in a cold climate, you know, wool hats are very warm. I've got a couple of wool hats,
Yes.
Western hats that are just wool, and man, I start sweating in them. They get, you know, if I'm even in temperatures over 60 or something, I'm wearing a wool Western hat, I'm sweating. So yeah, the material, depending on your climate, will vary depending on that with your essentials.
Excellent point. I mean, you know, you have your straw, but even within felts, right? You got your standard rabbit felt, your beaver felt, and then maybe throw in something like I'm going to say nutria, but noturia, however it's formally pronounced, because well, that felt is just rugged to begin with, so it seems like it covers that kind of like that ground as well. Again, yet another way to kind of cover all your bases. And inherently, usage is another way to tackle this, right? What are the hats that you reach for the most, right? So for me, it's the stingy brim, but for you, it could be your Hamburg, it could be your pork pie, it could be your boater hat, or just your flat cap, right? I mean, whatever hats that you reach for the most in terms of usage, that's a nice way to kind of, right? Like, let's say if you buy a hat, you're like, you know what, I just don't really wear it, and then, well, maybe you put it for sale, or somebody else says, hey, nice hat. It's like, well, you want it? I mean, make me an offer. So there's really no wrong way, but for you guys that are starting off, in many ways, I'm a little bit jealous for you guys that are starting off, maybe watching this video, because you guys have a little bit of a head start, I think, with some of this discussion, because, well, ultimately, you know, for me, I think I'm at the point where I know I have too many hats. You know, maybe something like this, a discussion like this, would have maybe kind of, you know, kept my collection a little bit more contained. But hey, it is what it is. I can't fault the process. The process is what it was, right?
One of the things that I've been noticing, and it's not just recently, it's over the last few years, is the knowledge gap. And I thought it was. My wife and I went to a jazz concert on Sunday night, and we shared a booth with another couple that we didn't know. They just showed up, and Elaine and I were both wearing our hats, and as per usual, they remarked, "Nice hat. Where did you get it?" And my wife always chimes in, and she said, "Oh, Robert's a hat maker," and that always is the opening point for a discussion.
Yeah.
And the fellow sitting across from us, he does own hats. He does wear them, but they are like really low end. His everyday hat was a leather Australian hat, and then he had a straw hat, and you know, so he wasn't averse or unknown to hat wearing, but he was totally, and I use the word aptly, he was totally ignorant about hats in the hat world.
Yeah.
And so, like, for me to discuss with him having a custom made hat, it was like, oh my God, I never knew that existed.
Yeah.
And he was talking about replacing his, it was a $30 or $40 Mexican straw hat, and explaining to him the difference between that and that I only sell the hand woven Panama hats, and like he had no idea, no idea, because in his world a hat is a hat.
Right.
And I think he's representative of a lot of people.
Certainly over here, Robert, I'd have to agree. I mean, it's we're fed with lots of the lower end hats through the various online retail outlets. You know, whether that be eBay, Vinted, and some of the big retailers. So there are very few places that you can get a rabbit fur felt hat over here in the UK.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and if you're, and if you're just a bloke off the block, you might be loath to wander into a lock and company because that's for other people.
Yeah.
I mean, for a lot of years, it's been relatively, I don't know, say 20 years ago that I first. Well, no, before that, it goes back maybe 40 years when I'd read in GQ about fine men's hats,
Yeah.
and there was a company in New York, an actual street front that made hats.
Right.
So you could go in and you could commission a custom hat, and so I used to keep a file of fashion ideas and things that I wanted to add to my wardrobe, and I had a separate file on hats because it's like
Yeah.
one day, and then like if I ever get to that tax bracket, because in my mind, to commission a custom hat is like you needed to be several tax brackets higher than the one that I was in. It just seemed like this was a separate world. So
Yeah.
about 20 years ago, when I discovered that there was this whole craft of custom hats and that wasn't that expensive,
Right.
for a working man like me, it was like, oh my God, I can actually commission a custom hat.
Right.
And before that, it was like Akubras were they were my nice hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that mindset still exists, is that even if they are aware that there is this field of custom hats, it's for somebody else in a much higher tax bracket.
Yeah. Yeah. You make a great point, Robert, in that just the idea of a custom hat, right? So the idea of maybe a 3-hat framework could be a custom hat, right? From one of the custom hat makers. We have 2 of them here on screen with us. And then you can maybe get a vintage hat, right? You could, you have one vintage hat, and then maybe to kind of round it out, you get a hat from one of the major brands, let's say Stetson or Borsalino or Lock & Co, right? And maybe that becomes your 3, type of your 3-hat collection. Or if you want to stick with brands, you could just go ahead and buy from an example from all the brands we just discussed, and then add others like a Kubra and all the others that I can't name right now, Resistol, etc. But those are ways that you can kind of gear up your hat collection. And again, ultimately, it comes down to the main thing, which is, right, if you're somebody that goes out and wears a hat, and again, I don't discriminate against folks that just collect them, right? There's some folks that just collect these fine hats and don't wear them. For me, I don't know if I could ever get myself to be that kind of collector, right? Where they just, it's kind of like in the gun world, they call them safe queens, right? They have guns that they never shoot. They just sit in the safe. I was never that kind of collector, right? With watches, with guns, and certainly not hats. But ultimately, in my mind, is when you put it on, regardless of whether you go out in public, when you put on a hat, how does it make you feel, right? And for me, if I had to choose, maybe the ultimate is take the 3 hats that make you feel the best, right? You get the most feel goods, the most feels, as the kids say, and those will be your 3-hat collection right there. And then keep going down, right? If you allow yourself 5 hats, then make sure that every hat that you have in those 5, you might have more that, some that make you feel better, but make sure they all make you feel great when you put it on.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is comfort also, because on the way out the door this morning, I was like, all right, I'm going to grab some really comfortable hats, because, even like when I travel and I'm going to wear boots, and if I'm going to be gone for a few days somewhere, I'm going to grab a pair of boots that are comfortable, easy to travel in. I can walk, I can be on my feet all day. So like if you've got a hat, and this kind of goes back, I think last week, or we discussed kind of a comfort level, or how the hat feels when it's on your head, because if it's not comfortable, you're not going to wear it. So you definitely, like, if you're only going to have a few hats, you want to make sure like that it fits good, because nobody wants to wear a hat that gives you a headache, or that just leaves marks on your head, and whatever it is. But
Correct.
you want to be comfortable in whatever hat it is.
Agreed. Yeah, we definitely had that discussion with Robert. In particular, Robert is a big proponent of trying to pay that extra mile, right? And it's a great line. You gotta, if you go just with the vintage route, you gotta kiss a few frogs or a lot of frogs before you find that one that fits right. And that's just something that comes with the territory. But whereas if you went custom right off the bat, or even just off the rack, right, from Stetson or Borsalino or Lock & Co., you can get the fit right, because, well, if it doesn't fit right, it's probably not going to look right, and you're not going to feel right, right? So, I think fit is very underrated, and honestly, it shouldn't be. I mean, it should be primordial.
And I think that's probably, like, you think about flat caps. All my flat caps except for one, like they fit fairly easy and good. And like Paul's wearing a ball cap. A lot of people wear ball cap and they never move away from ball caps. Correct. Because they fit so well, right? And you can cater their fit with like the straps and all that stuff. So that's why a lot of people just don't get away from that, because of the fit. They put maybe a fedora or Western hat on. Doesn't quite fit well, and then what do? They just go back to their ball cap because of the fit. And you just mentioned about custom, and it's like once you kind of get a custom hat, it's hard to go back. And I know, I've lived paycheck to paycheck, where you can only afford a $20 or $30 hat, and there's nothing wrong with that, But when you get a hat, even if you're in that situation and you get a hat that fits really well, it makes you feel good, you're probably going to be going back to wherever you got it to get more hats, but it's in your price range. It fits your lifestyle. It makes you feel good. It fits good. That's your hat right there.
That's right. And a compliment goes a long way. You get that one compliment. And, as a guy that wears fragrances, and watches, if you get that one compliment, that's all probably you need for that hat, man. I tell you, a compliment goes a long way, regardless of the gender.
Going back to the fit, it's it's understandable in that how few people understand and know that it's not just the size that you're after, but it's the shape of your head.
Correct.
And I'm evangelical about this, because there's even custom hat makers out there that because of the limitations of their blocks don't offer long oval sizes.
Right.
Which is criminal, because if you're not identifying properly the shape of your head, you're doomed. You're not going to get a hat that fits and feels comfortable.
Right.
Unless you're a standard regular oval, like a true 58 regular oval, then you're probably going to be able to get a hat that fits you, even off the an off the rack Stetson.
Yeah.
But if you're a 59.3 long oval, it's a little bit more difficult, and you have to be more circumspect where you go and who you buy the hat from.
Right.
And people don't understand that. And even if they'll then receive a hat that doesn't feel right, and they don't understand why.
Right.
And the most difficult one really is the Western weight, because they're so stiff when you first get them. If you haven't actually measured with a conformator or a French curve or whatever you want to call it, and made a block to actually fit that person's head, hat and head, then you have to explain to the client that, look, this is going to feel weird, just like a pair of shoes that are of a high quality or thick leather that take several occasions to wear it before it will actually become comfortable. And the hat is very similar. Whereas if you make it with the block, then straight off the bat it should be perfectly formed for you.
I have a ton of admiration for those, and I sort of understand. It doesn't really explain all of it, but at least some of the discrepancy between the pricing between dress hats and Western hats, because Western hat makers in general can and do charge a whole lot more money than your standard dress fedora. And part of that is that to be a true custom Western hat maker, you have to be able to nail the fit. And I never quite appreciated that until I actually made a couple of Western hats, because as Paul suggests, there's no margin for error. It's like if I make a hat out of a 95 gram FEPSA, I can be off a bit and that hat will still conform somewhat to the wearer's head.
Right.
If I was making it out of a 250 gram Western weight, that hat better fit.
Yeah.
Because the owner could wear that hat from now till forever, and there's more likelihood his head would conform to the hat than vice versa. It's like you have to, and fitting a hat, it's kind of a dark art. It's certainly much easier if the client is there in front of you, but doing it at a distance, I have great admiration for those Western hat makers that do that. And it's like, well, I can see why they're charging $1,500, $2,000 for one of their hats.
Yeah, I appreciate that French curve trick, and I think correct me if I'm wrong. Did Paul learn that from Robert? I don't know. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, Paul had me try this French curve, and and got the shape of my head, and I drew it out, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize I'm really, like, I knew I had a hunt. I was like a long oval, but I brought my wife, and I was like, hey, come here, let me do your head, and she's like, what are you doing? But then she had like a round head. I said, man, look at this, like all of our it's like a fingerprint, because everybody's head shape is different, and yeah, that's a great point, because you can buy, because I'm normally a 7.5 or 60, but if it's a round, it's going to fit totally different, is that mine? Is that, I don't know, is that okay? Yeah, there it is. Yeah, so it was it was interesting
long oval,
to get that shape. Yeah. And like, going back to like storing hats, because I've still got my outline. I need to take it somewhere and just have like 6 or 8 blocks made, so that when I'm not wearing my hats, that I can plug that in there, and it kind of, that's like my head being, and it doesn't have the heat in my head, but at least my head shape would stay in there while I'm storing them.
Right.
My favorite one was I made a festival hat for a woman, and I don't know how I did it, but I screwed up, and I made the hat a long oval, and then she came back to pick it up, and I was most pleased with this hat, because it was white, and it was a wide brimmed, it was a hat, and I put it on her head, and I have a mirror at the back of the shop, and she was walking towards it to see the hat, and you could see the hat. And as she was walking, my thought was like, oh no, because she was an extra long oval.
Yeah.
So the only point of contact was front and back. There was no head contact on the sides, and as she walked, the hat was doing this.
Wow.
And I looked, and I was like, I kind of turned white and thought, oh, this is not good. And then so she looks in the mirror, and she turns around, and she said, it just doesn't feel right. And I said, I know. So luckily, it would have been terrible if she was at a distance, but luckily she lived not too far away. And so I had to tear the hat down and totally remake it into, and I had to finesse it, because you can't buy an extra long oval block.
Right.
So it's like, I hope I never do another one, because it's a bitch. But it was like, it really pointed out what can happen when you don't get the fit right.
I've only got one at the moment, where I made a gentleman a festival hat in 235 gram 100% beaver felt, and I made I went to visit him, made the template exactly the size of his 58, and measured him 2 or 3 times with the tape measure and with the curved it up and everything. Then checked round the wood. Yes, exactly the same measurement, and so on. So I made the hat, gave it to him, and it's just got some slight movement in it. And it's like, but the hat looks slightly too big. Yet the hat, when you put the proper measuring tool, where is it? The round measuring tool inside this thing inside. It comes up to exactly a 58, and I'm like perplexed. So I've sort of got a solution, but I'm less than happy to let a hat go out that's not right. So I don't know, but Robert, would you think in that case, if it's slightly too, let's say it turns out that he's actually a 57.8 or something, should I strip the hat down, make the top of the hat steamed or wet, and then try and shrink it down? How would you best do that? Or would I have to really strip the whole lot down again?
Yeah, it's depending on I think the first thing I would check is there a gap at the tempo? Could he be more of an exaggerated long oval than you allowed for?
He's actually a round. He's a very unusual. It's the gentleman's from Asia, and
there it is. I've never had one of those, but there is a hat shape called a true round. Which is,
I've seen that. Yes,
and apparently though it's can't say it never occurs in the Caucasian population, but you're more likely to find it amongst Asians.
Yeah.
And so there's your issue, is that it might not be a size issue. It's
I've actually made
issue,
it.
Which maybe just last thing that I'll shut up is that maybe you can finesse it.
Yeah.
The size is good. It's just your shape. So you could then, and maybe worse come to worse, just remove the sweat. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't. I'm working with him. The good news is that the customer's quite happy to work with me on it to resolve it. And I said, look, I'll resolve it however we need to do it. But we've got a bit of distance. We've got about 2.5 hours driving time between me and him. And, it's just having made, quite a few hats now, probably near 400 hats. You sort of think, well, surely the goodness, I couldn't understand why it didn't fit him. The first issue was he wanted a 9 centimeter crown. And actually, that's what happened, was it actually hit the top of his head. So I said, look, pop the crown out, and then it fitted perfectly. There was, in terms of one centimeter from the top of his ear to the bottom of the hat with him. Okay, that's fine. So I just need to re-steam the crown, which I did, and that was perfect. And then he's just got this very slight movement. So I've made something for him, but I'm not, I'm thinking the gentleman's paid so much money for this hat, and I want to make the right solution, and I wasn't quite sure, which is hence why I thought, can I finesse it down? And actually, the shape thing, you've got quite. I'm wondering, Robert, whether even though I've got the wooden block and I've steamed it to the wooden block, because it's a 235, maybe it's coming out slightly when you take the block out. Because when I've got the hat and I took the block up with him and I popped it in there and took it out and I just showed him, look. We measured his head, 58. We measured the block, 58. We took the block, we put it inside the hat, fit perfectly. I said, and we've got the height right now of the crown, and it's like, I don't understand what's going on here. It's never happened to me. But what I'll do is I'll send over some. What I've basically done is another sweatband, the same color, and said, look, try that behind it, because if he puts that in behind it, then I know that actually if I reduce it by half a size, it might well be ideal for him. But rather than get it back, strip it down, reduce it by half a size, and then it's still not fit, I've got to get to the bottom of what the problem is first.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey guys, I got a hard stop here. So thanks for the
rambling on a bit.
topic. Great feedback, and good conversation. So
sounds good. Thank you, Nathan. Have a great day, man.
See you later.
Adios.
This is, if there's ever an argument for trying to go custom, we've just talked about it, right? So, especially when you have a manufacturer, right, a hatter like Paul and Robert, right? that are going to go the extra mile to make sure that you're happy. You know, I'd like to think all hatters do that, but I don't think they do. You know, at least, you know, that's my perception, is that you're going to have some variability there in terms of your options. And, you know, it's one of those things where you buy, you know, you buy it right or you buy it twice, right? And other or more. And that right there is something that even a vintage hat nerd like myself can appreciate, right? Like I understand that probably very well, given all the hats I've had, and they all fit in various different ways, right? Even from the same manufacturer. So that right there is a good reason for doing that. Well, we're just over an hour in. I just want to make sure that you guys both had a chance to weigh in and share anything you want on the topic at hand.
That's great. Thank you very much, Luke. It's not a good hat chat. Thank you.
Shout out to Nathan for suggesting this topic. And hopefully you guys at home have enjoyed this topic as well. You know, it really is pertinent for, even if you have you know, 60 plus hats or 100 plus hats, or if you have no hats, this is a useful topic to know and get your head around. So no pun intended. So thank you, Paul. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for Nathan for joining me on screen. Thank you to Jedi, Josh, Ian, Morgan, and anybody else I forgot that joined us on chat. But this has been Hat Tuesday, number 25. And you know what I'm going to say? Support all the fine folks on the Good Luke's Network. Support all the fine folks in the hat community outside the Good Luke's Network. But even if you don't, right? Even if you choose not to support this channel or any other channel, anybody else, the one thing you got to do, and won't get anybody after you, but you got to stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.
Ciao.
Ciao.